This podcast is a quest for well-being, a quest for a meaningful life through the exploration of fundamental truth. Enlightening ideas, insights on physical, mental, and spiritual health. The inspiration is love. The aspiration is to awaken new ways of thinking that can lead us to a new way of being well. Welcome to Body, Mind, and Soul Healing Conversations.
Valeria interviews Rebecca Kirk. She is a UK-based holistic life and career coach. She helps people who are feeling stuck and unfulfilled at a career crossroads discover the clarity and belief to choose a path which brings them greater purpose, well-being, and joy. By bringing a spiritual approach to career coaching, Rebecca's mission is to enable us to use our work challenge as a catalyst to a deeper awakening. Awakening not only to our true potential, but to who we are underneath the roles we play and to the higher force which supports us. Rebecca's own awakening first began when she was living in West Palm Beach, Florida in the late 1990s and working as a swimwear buyer. It was triggered by a yearning for something deeper than her work and the material wealth she was surrounded by. After much soul-searching, she moved back home to the UK in 2001 and embarked on a career within the corporate retail world. In 2010, responding to an underlying sense of still being in the wrong job, she then took the life-changing decision to go on a career break to Sydney, Australia. That was where her own life and career transformation truly began, in part thanks to the previously undiscovered joys of Buddhist meditation and Kundalini yoga. She realized it was time to escape the corporate world for good and started her own business as a retail and brand consultant. She was then able to carve out a more balanced lifestyle and continue some of the practices she discovered in Sydney. And then in 2015, Rebecca had the epiphany which brings us to the present day. On a beach on the east coast of England, she looked out to the sea and asked the universe for guidance on what her next steps were, having felt a calling away from the commercial world once and for all. And the answer was given to her. So, at the age of 40, Rebecca retrained as a life coach and embarked on her ultimate career change. Her connection to purpose is something which now brings her immense joy. And she uses her own career change experiences and all the tools and practices she learned along the way to enable others to find a deeper connection to their work and a more sustainable lifestyle to go with it. Rebecca's deep-seated connection to spirit is something she is passionate about integrating into her coaching practice and sharing with others, having witnessed the dramatic effects it has had on her own life. She works with clients around the world, providing one-to-one coaching programs and a new online career coaching course. Meet Rebecca on RebeccaKirk.co.uk. Here is the interview with Rebecca Kirk.
In your own words, who is Rebecca Kirk?
So I would say I'm a loving partner, a daughter, sister, friend. I'm a holistic life and career coach. I'm a lover of nature, of food, of music, of laughter. But I think underlying that, at my essence, I see myself as a divine being, a being of light, a being of love, and part of the greater universal intelligence that I believe we are all a part of. And I'd like to just be put in there an old song by a band, a UK band from the 80s called The Police, and they had a song called We Are Spirits in the Material World. And that, for me, kind of sums up what I'm about and what I believe all of us are about.
What is your understanding and idea of spirituality?
My understanding, my experience of it is a deeper connection to our true self. So there is an internal dimension to it, but I think also an external dimension. So a connection to a higher force, whatever we decide to call that. And I think there is a distinction for me between religion and spirituality, and very much spirituality is something that resonates with me much more. I think there is a freedom to it, and at its heart, that is what I believe we're here to experience, as a spiritual being. So.
You said ego self, so there is the higher self and the ego self. What would that be, the ego self?
So the ego self is that side that I believe we all have or have experienced to some degree, which is based in fear. It's that the identity, the form identity. So who we are in terms of our roles, our maybe what we're wearing, what we own. It's that side of self in the physical world. As opposed to the higher self, which goes beyond the physical form. And I very much see, as I was describing my own identity, I guess, having those two parts to ourselves.
I wonder often if it is possible to eliminate the presence of the ego self. Do you think it is?
I think it's, I think the aspiration to eliminate it completely can potentially be sort of counterproductive. Right. I think it's a great aspiration, and I think the danger is sometimes in trying to eliminate it. We're demonstrating further ego behavior. I think looking at it from a loving perspective, and that opportunity to awaken. I think the experience of the ego self often can be quite painful, quite difficult, and I think if we can use that as a catalyst, as a platform almost to go deeper into our higher self, then I think it's actually quite useful. But with the view that we're wanting to kind of lessen the impact in our life, and the higher self, I see that as the other extreme of coming from a place of love as opposed to fear. So for me, they both kind of sit at opposite ends of that spectrum of love to fear, which is what a lot of the spiritual teachers talk about.
What is your definition, your idea of success? What is to be successful to you these days?
For me, it is it's based around contentment. I think it's based around understanding our true purpose, which is for me is that connection to consciousness, connection to that higher force. For me, that supersedes everything else. In fact, I often work with clients on vision boards and obviously setting goals. And so I did that exercise for myself recently, and I realized that, ahead of, work goals or maybe kind of monetary goals, the most important thing for me is to find that connection to my being and that connection to spirit, to source. That for me is the ultimate in fulfillment. So success for me is to stay connected to that on a day-to-day or actually a moment-to-moment basis, which isn't easy, but it's a great kind of guiding light, if you like, which helps.
So true. I love that word, or this idea of getting to that state of mind, of practicing and trying to be there, contentment. there's something about being content. It has to do with gratitude too, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think being grateful for what we already have, and recognizing that we have so much. And I think we tend to default to the things that we haven't got, or striving for some future point. And I think absolutely the practice of gratitude can connect you with that contentment, and also raise your vibration. So actually the things that you end up experiencing, you're going to attract more of what you want anyway from that higher vibration, which certainly gratitude can enable.
Yeah, so I have heard, and I have probably read about, and I have interviewed people actually about the law of attraction. I guess the main question I have is using that to attract things that we want, but it's not really service of humanity. It's not helping the whole. So I'm wondering how that works, how that plays out, the law of attraction, when it comes to that.
That's a really interesting question, because I think some people I think have taken that process, that principle, and potentially used it for things that aren't for our highest good, or for humanity's highest good. And I think that underlying intelligence will, in a sense, supersede that the law of attraction. So if something doesn't actually come about through that positive thinking, through that sort of projection, I think there is an onward kind of development opportunity, I guess, of acceptance and understanding the bigger picture as to why that might not happen. But I think it certainly throws up a lot of questions for people that read about that. It's a very, very, very interesting question.
I think that's one of the things that I try to understand since the very beginning when I heard about it. Perhaps that's because I heard so much people talk about, I have a house, I have this, because of the law of attraction. They talked a bit too much about the material aspect.
Yeah, and I think you can use the law of attraction for those non-material goals. Even I think the experience of contentment, of peace, that simple process of, asking, believing, and then receiving, opening to receive, which is the basic law of attraction process. I think you can use that for the non-material, but equally, I think, everybody's on their own path, on their own journey. And actually, if they have manifested, or they're aiming to manifest the material, I think the ultimate realization that is not truly fulfilling is perhaps something that they need to work through. Until, I think sometimes we have to be given the same message until we kind of wake up and go, right, there's something else going on here. And certainly a lot of clients that I work with, they think they're going to get that fulfillment through, a better job, greater status, more material gain. And then they realize when they get that there's something still missing. But that's a journey, isn't it? That's a realization that I think the universe presents to us, and it's up to us how we show up to that, and then what we choose to do with it.
Talk to me about the change, the career change. How did your life change? What was the process of changing careers, and what have you learned from it?
My own personal experience, do you mean, of career change?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I learned that certainly it was a process, and the position that I'm in now, where I feel like I am doing work that, without sounding too kind of grandiose, I really believe I'm sent here to do. And I believe we all have something that we're sent here to do on whatever scale. But, it has not been a linear journey to this point. It's been a series of changes. It's challenged, every fiber of my being. But in that challenge, it's provided the impetus for me to find solutions, find new ways of doing things. And my work now is about enabling other people who are in a similar position to what I was, around 10 years ago, very unfulfilled by the corporate world, it's giving them the tools and the means of which to find and connect with their purpose, and to live a life of greater balance, greater fulfillment. So, you know, it's been a journey. Along the way, there has been a light bulb moment, and for me, that is pure connection to spirit, to the universe. When you get a flash like that, and I was stood on a beach on the east coast of England, and I had a light bulb moment, and it all made sense at that point. You know, and then it's about showing up and being vulnerable, and, you know, not being able to ignore those that inner voice that's perhaps just been whispering to you until this point, and now it's shouting and kind of whacking you around the face. So it's time to get on with it. So it's been, you know, it's been quite varied in you know, like I say, a light bulb moment, and other things which are more subtle than that, you know, that's kind of a murmuring that I've then responded to.
I think you mentioned intuition, positive thoughts. There's another word you use that I'm trying to find here. Oh yeah, I found it.
Vibrational energy.
Right.
Yeah.
So would you say trust is the key? Having no doubt when the intuition speaks to us. But there's another question that comes after that, like, what is intuition? How do we know the difference between the ego voice and the intuition?
Yeah. I mean, I think that is the first thing, is to learn to recognize when your intuition is coming through versus a kind of a logical, mind-based, you know, thought. And, you know, I think connecting with your body, actually, because, you know, some people feel it in the gut, some people feel it in the kind of heart center, some people get literally a flash coming through, and, you know, we're taught so much to base our decisions on logic, so this is kind of a bit of a rewiring. But I pretty much every client that I work with, I will try and enable them to connect or reconnect with their intuition, because I believe we all have it. It's there, whether it's active or it's laid dormant for some years. But learning to read the signs physically in your body when it comes through, I think is the first thing. And it feels different to a thought. There is a different energy to it, a different kind of texture to it, if that makes sense. And unless you kind of realize what it is, it can just be sort of dumbed down. So I think empowering people to then act on it is absolutely 100% about trust. And I think trust for me is a huge topic that comes out in, I would say, almost every client that I work with. There is an element of trust that you know, can really transform things. And that's not just trust in the self. That is trust, again, in this higher force, that we are being supported, and to tap into that more fully.
What do you think is the purpose of the human experiment?
I believe we're meant to experience a whole range of things, emotions, and suffering, I think, is part of that. That is a really interesting one. Can you ask again? Can you just ask me that question again, Valeria?
Yes. What do you think is the purpose of the human experience?
I mean, I think that for me, light is a really important symbol, if you like. So bringing light into the world, so manifesting in physical form what exists in, you know, in the spiritual realm, birthing that, bringing that into our interactions, into the things that we create. So being a vessel, being being the sort of conduit for spirit to share with others, to help others, even to challenge others, I would say. It's I believe, more and more there are those two sides are equally important, albeit quite contrasting, I think, sometimes. But yeah, I think we are put here to experience the whole range, and to communicate that being, that light, wow, and that love, I guess, as well.
What comes to me, it's love, yeah, as one of the ways that the light manifests here. And another word that comes to me is balance, harmony. And I'm wondering if that has something to do with trying to balance both, being physical and spiritual at the same time.
I mean, I think that starting from our foundations, our spiritual foundations first, and then the physical to be the expression that comes after that. I think there's a great spiritual teacher from a few years ago, Shakti Gawain, who introduced me to this idea of the three kind of states of being, which was being, doing, and having. And to put our attention to the state of being first and foremost, so that our doing is then more of an expression of that being. So we're bringing things into this world that are more connected to spirit, if you like, or to that intelligence, rather than starting from a place of doing or even having, which, I think people kind of come at it from thinking they're going to find that happiness from that point. So for me, balance is kind of recognize. I like the analogy of a tree. So I imagine that, the being state is the roots of the tree, and getting those roots tended to and in a good place, so that the trunk of the tree, which is our doing, can really thrive and be strong and aligned. And then the having, which is the kind of leaves or the fruits of the tree, that will come naturally because we've got the other two firmly in place. And for me, that is balance. For me, that's aligning those three states.
What is the meaning of freedom to you, Rebecca? What is to be free? Will that be the same thing, being balanced?
I think freedom, it's again, I suppose there is a tangible aspect to it, but there's a feeling aspect to it. But being able to choose the path that you want to choose. And I guess I've been lucky in having that freedom. I've chosen several different paths in life that, perhaps in some other countries, cultures, you wouldn't be able to choose. And, so freedom for me is around choice. It's around expression. And again, I guess in terms of spirituality, it's saying, actually, this is what works for me. This is my version of spirituality. I don't have to follow this particular this particular path or this religion to get to source. This is my expression of it, and that is real freedom. And it's the energy and the feeling that comes with that.
Yeah, it sounds very much like it, and that makes me wonder about the choices and intuition, or coming from that root, from that being. So that sounds like that we no longer make choices anymore. We are flowing with life. It's happening naturally. So there is a choiceless path in a way. So I'm wondering how those two, making choices, trying to control life, our lives, and just flowing with life and letting the being do the work.
Yeah, I think listening to that inner voice, so learning to tune into that little nudge, that little, this could be for your highest good, and knowing the difference between that kind of choice and another choice which is perhaps not for highest good. But I've certainly been in the flow. Being in the flow, I think, doesn't always get us exactly what we've asked for, and I think but that the word trust for me comes in again here. It's trusting that actually what you have been presented with is for your highest good. There is something maybe that you need to heal, or let go of, or learn, and trusting why that is being presented to you, as opposed to the thing that you've asked for, I think can just help, I guess, just feel calmer, more centered, which again comes back to balance, I guess, to your earlier point.
So I'm wondering what it feels like when we have found our purpose.
I think there is a kind of clicking into place. Certainly that's been my experience and the experience of clients who've found that purpose. There is a sense of ease and I guess a lightness of being. There's not to say that it's not without challenge, but I think what happens when you do connect with that purpose is that it empowers, it gives you the courage to overcome any fears of being vulnerable, putting yourself out there, the hard work involved potentially. So it's deeply motivating, and I think it's just something that you don't really question. I think that calling, it makes sense. And I think when you've been in a career or a role where you haven't felt that, you know the difference. It's a knowing.
So knowing the difference, it might be the only way to know. And that comes from experience, right, Rebecca? There's no way we can replace that because we have to experience both in order to know.
Absolutely. And I believe that no experience is ever really wasted as such. I believe everything can be used to move us forward. It just depends on how we choose to view it, as as an opportunity as opposed to something that can kind of bring us down. And certainly the world of work is it challenges us in every way, and I think coming to the needing a career change, that impetus that comes with that something is really amiss, feeling like a round peg in a square hole. That's what I hear sometimes, so that is a kind of a visceral sort of experience that people have, and then when you fit, that ease, that flow.
Why do you think so many of us wait so long to make those changes, especially career changes, when we are unhappy?
Fear.
Well, okay. Yeah.
Number one, fear. Fear of, fear of making the wrong decision, fear of what others may think of us if we go and do something completely different, fear we're going to lose our income. I mean, the list goes on, but fear. And this is what then brings us back to the topic of ego, because that is primarily fear-based. But it is fear.
What do we do with fear from your experience? What have you done? It's something that we try to transmute, transform into something else. We try to eliminate, we integrate. What's the best way?
There's a number of things. I mean, I think, again, bringing it down to the spiritual and the sort of the physical, the tangible. In the spiritual sense, I think, meditating on trust, meditating on acceptance. In the tangible world, I mean, one of the things that is quite powerful is to just literally spell out that fear, spell out that belief. And quite often it boils down to a belief that, I'm not good enough. That is something I hear surprisingly often. I'm not good enough, which is about as deep as it gets, really. But taking people through a process that helps them identify that, understand where that's come from, and getting them to picture and really experience what it would be like if they were to let go of that belief, of that fear. So they have an experience of it before, which again comes a little bit back to the law of attraction here. But then enabling them to turn that around and create an affirmation from it. A very simple affirmation that forms part of a daily practice, to start, giving your subconscious a new empowering message. That's a couple of things. It can run really deep. in that this is, a kind of a therapy or a counseling kind of job, with it being about, self-worth. It's a very deep subject, but there are certainly things that can be done to work with it in a kind of a coaching context.
Yeah, that brings me to that question about self-worth, self-care, self-love. What are some of the best practices to begin with so we can improve on these areas?
Well, the first thing that I recommend is for people to give themselves permission to practice self-care. So in my experience, people know what they need to be doing, but they're not doing it. And they quite often don't believe they should be spending time on themselves. There is a belief within there that it's wrong. They feel guilty, especially if they have a family. So working on that level, knowing that you deserve it. And the analogy that always works for me and for clients is, to put your own oxygen mask on first before you can help other people. So I think, again, working on the level of the mind before we kind of try and bring in these kind of self-care practices in. But, beyond that, I think, simply allowing yourself time and space. So for me, walking in nature is hugely therapeutic and is a great act of self-care, and allowing yourself to be truly present when you're on that walk. So letting go of distractions. So no mobile phones, that kind of thing, but being very, very present, I think is the ultimate. And then, obviously things like diet, things like sleep hygiene, exercise, but it's also those little indulgences, just like treating yourself to a really lovely bath, or, I'm a big fan of essential oils. So just having an essential oil by your desk to create a little pause in the day where you connect with the breath. Because breath is life, and it's the most calming and the simplest practice that we can all do, but it's easy to forget. There's a number of things, and surprisingly simple as well, I think.
So we're almost at the end. I have a few more questions for you, Rebecca. Would you like to add anything?
Well, it's just been great to be speaking with you today, Valerie, and it's a topic I'm very passionate about. I think for me, if anybody out there is listening who has a career challenge that they're going through at the moment, I think just to try and see that as a catalyst to your awakening, to tapping into that deeper understanding of who you are, what the support is that's out there from the universe, but to see it as a catalyst for your awakening. It's something that I'd love to kind of leave your audience with.
If you knew you would die soon, meaning losing the body, would you make any change in your life or do anything in a different way?
I don't think I would, really. I think I would just spend more time with my loved ones. That would be it, really.
So my last question is, what are 3 things about life you know for sure as of today?
I believe that, as I guess I've just said, that, our challenges are here to awaken us, to help us grow. I believe that being in the present moment is one of the most important and profound transformational things that we can do, is learning to be present. And I wish they taught that more in schools, but I know the benefits of it, of being in this moment. And then the third one, I think that we are all much more capable than what we believe. I think we have access to so much more than what we're taught, than what we're led to believe. We have, so many tools, so many ways of seeing the world that aren't, taught, that we can use. And I think we have great power as spiritual beings, having a human experience. I believe we have great power.
Thank you so much again for your beautiful message, your genuine presence, your work. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Where can we find more information about you, your work, courses, products, services, and future projects?
So I have a website, which is rebeccakirk.co.uk. That has all the information about my career course, about my one-to-one work, my blog. So there's always plenty of articles and tools, and also coming soon a webinar, so an online workshop to take you through hopefully some empowering and new ways of seeing your work challenge, if that's what you're going through at the moment. So yeah, everything's on there, and I'm also on the usual social media channels as well.
Wonderful. I'll have those links listed with the podcast profile. Thank you so much again, Rebecca, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Rebecca Kirk and her work, please visit rebeccakirk.co.uk. To learn more about this podcast, please visit fitforjoy.org/podcast. Thank you again for listening, and bye for now.